Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back this evening slash Saturday night. Saturday night with approximately 36 minutes past the top of the hour when we do come to you live from Kampala. There's plenty for us to discuss or talk about in the wake of the Saturday, everything that has transpired, and it's been plenty. It's been plenty. Hi, Pedri, how are you doing, my brother? There's plenty for us to talk about. Congratulations, Barcelona leaving it late. Thanks to Ronald Araujo there, leaving it late against Girona. And not, I think, the smoothest of results or wins, but Barcelona will take the win. Hansi Flick getting sent off, of course. We will talk about Arsenal's narrow victory away to Fulham at Craven Cottage. Chelsea thumping, of course, Nottingham Forest, which culminated into the sacking of Ange Postecoglou. We will talk about the Uganda Premier League because the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, which is the FA of Uganda, has kept into the fans' boycott of the local league football and have reverted from their new shambolic league format and reverted back to the old format, which is a round robin. And fans have been in celebration ever since then. So we'll talk about all that and more. Araujo just became the next Messi. Give him his flowers. God knows he does deserve them. But yeah, like I said, plenty for us to discuss. As we speak, Atletico de Madrid 1-0 up against Osasuna. Those will be playing Arsenal in midweek and next week. That's in the UEFA Champions League. So yeah, I won't be back to your channel until the 2026 World Cup, so I can see the big growth that will have happened. I'm just joking. Oh, okay. Anyway, growth is not by taking away the little you have; it's by adding on to what you have. So, in that sort of sense. Anyways, where do we even start it from? Where do we start it from? Anyways, for purposes of let's begin with the hottest news because I do not remember the last time a manager had been sacked 90 minutes after being in charge of a game. I mean, when was the last time we saw that? Have we even ever? Because that's what happened today. Chelsea went and beat up against Nottingham Forest by 3-0. Those goals scored by Joshua Achepong, Pedro Neto, and Reche James were enough to help Chelsea cruise to victory, taking them to what, 14 points so far in the Premier League this season. And then 19 minutes after that game, their manager, the Nottingham Forest manager, that's Ange Postecoglou, was being shown the exit. He was being told he is out of a job. Isn't that crazy? I mean, going into the fixture itself, the writing, I think, was on the wall that something was bound to happen. That something was bound to happen, that somebody was going to be shown the exit. And it did not take long. I mean, he becomes one of the managers that have been sacked the quickest. I think you have to go back some time back when Sam Allardyce was sacked at Leeds United after only 30 days. Now you have Ange Postecoglou sacked after 39 days in charge. Of course, there's another manager that I've seen who was sacked after what? After 40 days. So, I mean, I do not want to say these things happen because they do not just happen, but I think the writing was on the wall. Anyways, let's digest that further, or all of it in context. First of all, you had Nottingham Forest, who guided you had Nuno Espirito Santo, who guided Nottingham Forest back to the European scene for the first time in 3 decades. Well, they decided he does not play fancy football, entertaining football, among other issues, including his disagreements with the owner, that's Evangelos Marinakis, which were not on principle, but rather a fight between two of his employees that spilled over to him. How did it all start? Evangelos Marinakis goes and hires Edu Gaspar Dawood as the head of football, as the head of global football for his cohort of clubs, which include Nottingham Forest, Olympiacos, and I think Braga in Portugal. So when he appoints him, he's supposed to spearhead, he's supposed to work as some form of sporting director of some sort for all these clubs. And Nottingham Forest was high, in his plans. So they do a summer plan, they go and execute it the way Edu Gaspar Dawood saw fit. Now, right from the onset, Edu Gaspar Dawood and Nuno Espirito Santo did not see eye to eye on a number of issues, including the squad building, because apparently Nuno Espirito Santo preferred to have a bit of a smaller squad as opposed to having a bloated squad where you would have some players being unhappy, which could disrupt the dressing room. And yet Nuno Espirito Santo wanted a bit of a neat circle where he can manage to afford literally every player some bit of game time, some bit of playing time, which to the contrary, Edu Gaspar would say, so it as such, we're going to be playing in Europe. That means we need a broader squad so that we can be competitive in Europe, we can be competitive in the Premier League, and sort of retain, this kind of positions of finishing as high as 7th or even more. And then also compete in the cup competitions. That's possibly was his vision. Maybe that was his school of thought or school of argument. Yet in sharp contrast, Nuno Espirito thought otherwise. It went on individual players. Some of the players, I think they did not agree on who they signed exactly. I do not think Nuno Espirito Santo was in favor of the signing of Omari Hudson from Ipswich Town, because even when they announced their UEFA Europa League squad, he was, he was omitted from that list. And that was announced when, Nuno Espirito Santo was, still in charge. So just to rewind things back, Nuno Espirito Santo joins Nottingham Forest in the midway or somewhere after midway in the 2023-2024 season, when Nottingham Forest were staring down the barrel of the relegation gun. He saves them from relegation. They finish 17th, and they're not relegated. Then the subsequent season, which was last season, 2024-2025, his first full season in charge, he guides them to a 7th place finish. Of course, they were gunning for a top 4. They fell short, but nobody was ever going to criticize them for finishing 7th. When last season, when the season before that, they had been battling relegation and successfully did so. So nobody was going to stand and tell them you've underachieved, in any form of circumstance. So that's how it was. Now, comes the summer, of course, Edu has come in. Now, when Edu comes in, there goes, I do not want to call it a rift, but rather a gap between Nuno Espirito Santo and Evangelos Marinakis. Before Edu comes in, if Nuno Espirito Santo wanted something or wanted to speak to his boss, Evangelos Marinakis, it was quick, very direct. Now, when Edu Gaspar walks in, he comes in between these two. So he becomes some form of channel, between the two. And I remember particularly Nuno Espirito Santo expressing his form of frustration in his own way, saying that the gap between him and his boss had started to grow bigger and bigger, and it wasn't pretty. Of course, he said that outrightly in the media. He sort of tackled about it on 2 different occasions, which left a bit of a sour grape in the mouth of Evangelos Marinakis, who decided to let him go. Of course, the decision itself was unpopular amongst Nottingham Forest fans, as it was amongst the players themselves. And particularly because they did value the relationship, the players that they had with their manager, who was more of a father figure to some of them, the likes of Ola Aina, and that sort of sense. So I remember at the time when the decision was made, I said this without fear of contradiction, and I will repeat it, that it was the wrong decision right from the onset. Many people came and criticized it, that they did not need to do that. Yes, were there justifications for doing it? Yes. Were they good enough? I do not think so. Then when it comes to the style of football that they did play, being conservative, catching teams on the counter, I mean, you can't criticize the style however much you want. Of course, they had some big losses, I think, to Bournemouth and Brighton and Hove Albion. Was it 5-0 and then 7-0 in one of some of those fixtures? So that notwithstanding, you thought to yourself that perhaps, maybe, just maybe, we can overlook the style of football and focus on what is really, really important. And what is really, really important is the results on the pitch. At the end of the day, it's the results on the pitch that count the most. Why? Because if you're a team like Nottingham Forest, it matters less how you win than the fact that you win, because you have come to the Premier League, you've invested every single penny you have to stay there. And more than once you come close to being relegated. And then you find a manager that fights you out of that, qualifies you for European football, for which they qualified for. I think it was they qualified for the UEFA Conference League by the virtue of finishing seventh. But because Crystal Palace were found in breach of the Mal Club ownership, because their then shareholder John Textor, the American investor, was also a shareholder in Olympique Lyon, they got relegated from the UEFA Europa League, which they had qualified for after winning the FA Cup when they beat up against Manchester City. And then Nottingham Forest was promoted to the Europa League, and Crystal Palace were relegated to the UEFA Conference League in that context. But all those semantics aside, if you have a manager that has achieved that for you, and why on God's green earth are you letting him go? Why are you letting him go? Why are you letting him go? Just because you want to hide behind, excuses of, football not being so fancy, not being too nice. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Why really? Because you do not need to make that kind of decision. You do not need to make that kind of decision. Now, actually, to the contrary, it was Nottingham Forest that beat up against Brighton by 7 goals to 0 last season. And then the other fixture ended in a 2-2 draw. So, if you have a manager that is capable of winning for you again by 7-0 against Brighton, where you have Lewis Dunk scoring an own goal, Morgan Gibbs-White, a hat-trick for Chris Wood, and Neko Williams, and Jota Silva, I mean, why are you sacking him? Anyways, all that, pack that to the side. The fact of the matter remains, he was sacked. So when he was sacked, of course, he went away. Literally, somebody said, a report, I think, for The Athletic said that literally, Nuno Espirito Santo forced himself into being sacked. He literally drove himself there because of the public comments that he made about his boss. Now, like I said, at the time, that it was easier, or it would have been easier for Evangelos Marinakis to summon Espirito Santo for a cup of coffee and they iron out their differences, and he sort of paints the picture for Nuno Espirito Santo as how things will work, or how better they can stay in touch without the spark between Nuno Espirito Santo and Edu Gaspar Dawood getting in the way of their relationship. In that sort of sense. Then also, I did mention that if I want Evangelos Marinakis, if I had to sack between the two, between Edu Gaspar Dawood and Nuno Espirito Santo, it wasn't going to be Nuno Espirito Santo, because he was getting the results on the pitch. The other is, my sort of boardroom person, as good as they may be at their job, as a big a position they could have, or they may have invaluable delivery to the club, but what the manager does on the pitch is what helps him do his job, in that sort of sense. Also, he was a new member. He was a newer member than Nuno Espirito Santo, but he decided otherwise. It was a wrong decision, and it came back to bite him. He did not hesitate. So today he did not hesitate to correct his own mistakes, sacking Ange Postecoglou after being in charge of Nottingham Forest for 8 games, where he drew only 2, 1-1 against Burnley in the Premier League and 2-2 against Real Betis in the Europa League. Then he lost all the other 6. Lost to Midtjylland by 3 goals to 2. That's in the Europa League. Lost to Swansea by 3 goals to 2 as Swansea knocked them out of the Carabao Cup at the 3rd round. Then in the Premier League, he lost 4 games. He lost to Sunderland, he lost to Arsenal, he lost to Newcastle, and he lost to Chelsea. Now, in all those games, surprisingly, they did not score a goal. Not that I recall. Chelsea beat them 3-0, as did Arsenal 3-0. Newcastle beat them 2-0. Sunderland beat them 1-0. So, I mean, that's just about it. So, poor performances, a series of poor results led them here. And in fact, in their statement, Nottingham Forest did say this was 19 minutes after the final whistle at the City ground. Nottingham Forest Football Club can confirm that after a series of disappointing results and performances, Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duties as head coach with immediate effect. The club will make no further comment at this time. So there it was, the decision, you know. So in other words, you see, the 19 minutes we are talking about is them posting the results on their social media and then the announcement that he had been sacked. Now, I was telling you about managers that have had a short stint in their respective jobs. Sam Allardyce at Leeds United sacked after 30 days. Ange Postecoglou comes second, 39 days in the job at Nottingham Forest. Les Reed at Charlton sacked after 40 days. Javi Garcia at Leeds sacked after 69 days, and then Rene at Fulham after 75 days. I mean, I thought I could summon the example of Sinisa Hajlovic, may his soul rest in peace, when he went to Sporting Lisbon and was there for hardly a month. But I do not think he was sacked. They just chose to part ways. Anyways, all that back to the side. Now Nottingham Forest are in the search of a new manager. Reports have come out that Evangelos Marinakis started searching for a new manager or a potential new manager at the time when after they lost 3-2 against Midtjylland. I think that's when he said, I think I got this one wrong. I need to look elsewhere. And among the people they are looking at is Roberto Mancini, the former Manchester City manager, as well as Inter Milan and the Italian national team, of course, and many other teams that Roberto Mancini has managed. But we will wait and see if they will get, they will get him. Then two, the other is Sean Dyche, is one of those that they are looking at, the former Burnley and Everton manager. I think if I were Nottingham Forest, I think I would opt for Sean Dyche. If I want safety, for as far as this season is concerned, I would consider this a false start, a very bad false start. First 8 games, we still have 30 games in the league to play. We still have 6 games to play in the Europa League, in as far as the league format, sort of league stage is concerned. I'd go for Sean Dyche, well acclimatized with English football, conservative manager, defensively solid, literally packs the bus, and is all about that. Give him that facet of good players, and he will get you some results, you know. But anyways, he's among the candidates. The other person that they are considering is Marco Silva of Fulham. They've not made any formal approaches to him, according to media reports, but we will wait and see if they will be making an announcement really, really soon, because they are expected to be in the UEFA Europa League in the course of the week. So, meanwhile, the sacking came when at the end of the game, journalists go to the press room to wait for managers to come and speak to them. The manager of the home team and the manager of the visiting team. That's where they received the news that Ange Postecoglou had been sacked. You know, what an odd way of doing things. So, but that's it. That's the case. You know, with Ange Postecoglou, who was sacked. Do let me know what your thoughts were or are on Ange Postecoglou being sacked. Do you think it was the right decision to be made, or do you think it was a rash decision sacking him after being in charge of 8 games, although winless, but also only 39 days in charge? I think he will look back to this moment and he would want to erase it out of his life. I think that will be the case when it comes to this part of his life as a manager, in as far as managing football is concerned. Anyways, okay. Yes, so about Roberto Mancini, it was called by a bat of the Telegraph. Is the one that called that first. And Shondich, Marco Silva, all candidates, and we will wait and see who they will choose at the end of the day. But we will leave that apart for now. Quickly, where does the flight take us? Where should we start? Arsenal. Should we? Okay. Meanwhile, okay, let's conclude with the Chelsea game because it's what led to the sacking of Ange Postecoglou. And in that very game, what happened was Nottingham Forest were a dog without teeth, literally a barking dog without teeth. Chelsea eventually won the game easily. I thought Nottingham Forest conceded in a silly manner from a set piece, and then of course the 2 set pieces, one being a free kick that gets started by Richie James, and then Pedro Neto slices it into the back of the net. Martial's got a hand to it, but it proved too strong for him. Pedro Neto had provided the assist for Joshua Achepongo's goal. You had Malo Gusto being set off in the 87th minute, but that did not impact the result of the game because Richie James had scored in the 84th minute to make it 3-0, and eventually that's how Chelsea won the game with 6 shots on target, 3 goals. Nottingham Forest only had 2 shots on target, 6 shots on target. When it came to ball possession, it was a 50-50, and that's what I was talking about earlier on today, that in terms of playing that possessive football, he had improved them in that regard. They had started to look like an Ange Postecoglou team. Nonetheless, it's not always enough. It's not always enough. Playing well without results does not guarantee you anything. It can only guarantee you that you get sacked. So that is that. In the other results from the Premier League, of course, Manchester City beat up against Everton by 2-0, but Erling Haaland being on target in that one twice, scoring his 10th and 11th goals of the campaign, as with Nick O'Reilly and Savinho providing the assists in that game. But a routine win for Manchester City that at the time took them level on points with Arsenal, who level on points, goal difference was the same, 11. But anyways, of course, Arsenal had to play later. Sunderland beat up against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 2-0. Again, this is a game that we predicted that Sunderland would win. I think our prediction was a 2-0 victory. It's time to be corrected. Manchester City, our prediction had been a 2-1 victory, as had been the case for Chelsea, but they did it even better and kept clean sheets. Brighton and Hove Albion against Newcastle. Brighton beat up against Newcastle by 2-1 as Newcastle continue with their difficult start to the season. To a brace from Danny Welbeck in the 41st minute as well as the 84th minute were enough to reduce Nick Voltmada's 4th goal of the campaign in the 76th minute that had been an equalizer at the time, turned out to be a mere consolation on the evening. So, in that sort of regard. Then also quickly, excuse me, the other result was Leeds. Leeds lost to Burnley by 2-0. I remember mentioning it here that you remember when Burnley met up against Sunderland at home, they beat them by 2-0. If there's any if there's any team you can gather points off, is a team that you know too well right from the championship. Beat them and I live to fight another day for the other game. So basically, that's what Burnley did, who are under the charges of Scott Parker. Then Crystal Palace came from 2 goals down, I think. I did not get to watch this game, but last I checked, it had been 2-0 in favor of AFC Bournemouth, only to return, and it was a 3-3. So, yeah, they came from 2 goals down to steal a point with Roype. Is that how they pronounce it? He scored a brace for the visitors in Bournemouth, as well as Ryan Christie. Then Joan Felipe Mateta scored a hat-trick, including a penalty in the 7th minute of added time. So they had to leave it late to secure a point at Selhurst Park against AFC Bournemouth on the evening. Then the other result came in the late game, that was at 7:30 p.m. as Arsenal beat up against Fulham by a 1-0. Last season, that fixture ended in a 1-1 draw at the same venue. Again, there was nothing special about the game. It was a bit of a dull game, a bit of a 50-50 in a sense. Of course, Arsenal dominated ball possession to the tune of 63% compared to Fulham's 37%. They had 5 shots on target, Arsenal, and 7 off target. Fulham had 5 off target and 0 on target. Now, for the second consecutive game, Arsenal did not concede a shot on target. Remember, the first time it happened was against West Ham, the weekend before the international break. That was on Match Day 7. They did not concede a shot on target. So now they did it against Fulham. And that is happening for the first time since their title-winning season of 2003 and 2004, when they did it around November, at that period. So whether there's anything to read into that, that's up to you, the fans, to digest, but I thought I should mention that fact to you. Also, in terms of corner kicks, Arsenal, at some point, it felt like they were playing for corner kicks. Anyways, they had 10 out of 6. The goal came from Leandro Trossard in the second half, of course, in the 58th minute, following the Bayern pass half. It was another set-piece goal. Gabriel Magalhaes flicking off Bukayo Saka's corner kick to, lead it down the path of Leandro Trossard, who I think scored by his thigh, and basically Arsenal hung on to that one. And yeah, that was the kind of result. Amongst some of the standout performance, even though it was a bit of a dull game, I thought Declan Rice did well. He went his socks off. He did look tired towards the tail end of the game, around the 80th minute or something. And I was wondering, why wasn't Mikel Arteta bringing on Christian Nogat to try to bring on fresh legs? Why wasn't he maybe withdrawing Martin Zubimendi? Because you have a game in midweek. Give the guys a rest. But anyways, they'll have the day off tomorrow to recuperate and things like that. But that notwithstanding, I thought some changes should have come a bit much earlier, and yet he decided to bring on Christian Nogat at the tail end of the game. That coming in for Victor Gyökeres after the 90th minute mark. Around deep into stoppage time. So, but then the other standout performer, I thought Jurriën Timber. I thought he did really well again on the day. Bukayo Saka looked really sharp. He lacked the cutting edge, but he did look sharp. He remained Arsenal's biggest threat on the night. Victor Gyökeres, I thought, had a bit of a 50-50 game, a performance that was better than the one he put on against West Ham United. He had 2 attempts on goal that were served by Bernard Leno. He missed the other from close range. He blazed that ball over the bar. I thought he should have done better in that moment. But yeah, at the end of the day, he really did well. Fulham had their moments in terms of threatening Arsenal on goal, but all those attempts went wide of the mark, and so they never paid off at the end of the day. So yeah, it was that kind of game. Not very entertaining, bit of a dull game, but these are the kinds of games that Arsenal need to win. The kinds of games where they dropped points last season. Like I said, last season it was a 1-1 draw, and this time around they get to win. regardless of how they win, it will be more important that they win. And again, I did say this at the time when Mikel Arteta was coming under a lot of criticism of how his team were not playing well. And I did say at the end of the season, if Mikel Arteta does win a major title, whether it's the Premier League title or the UEFA Champions League, the style of how he may have achieved those results will be less a talking point than it will be the title in itself. So, whereas I did not appreciate the game in its entirety because I thought Ebeleche Eze lacked the sharpness. He struggled through the game. He was withdrawn from Mikel Merino. I thought Declan Rice, Ricardo Carafiori were not doing enough to help Leandro Trossard in terms of doing the overlaps to, either drag attention away from him or give him a playing channel quickly. Oftentimes they did not do that. Again, I've said this before and I'll repeat it again. I did tell it to somebody. I was close to watching the game that you will mourn, Arsenal fans will mourn about the lack of effectiveness from their left wing, but it is less about the players that play there and more about the structure within which they play there. When you look to Bukayo Saka's right wing, you could see that constantly Julian Timber was making the overlaps, was coming close to provide support. Martin Zubimendi was coming close to provide that channel to play into and things like that. But I do not know what language you've typed that in. I will go ahead and assume it's Chinese, which I neither speak nor can read. But it's good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the channel, but also consider subscribing to the channel. Like the broadcast and consider subscribing to the channel. But thank you so much for joining us this late Saturday night. It's already midnight here in Kampala, Uganda. Anyways, that notwithstanding, so like I said, it was that kind of game. Really, there was not so much positivity to carry away from, apart from the fact that Arsenal found a way to win, even when they weren't playing their best football on the day, or in that sort of sense and regard. So they will take the win and match on because the win itself keeps them at the summit of the Uganda Premier League table. And sorry, not the Uganda Premier League table. Sorry, keeps them at the summit of the Premier League table with 19 points and a positive goal difference of 12, just one goal more than Manchester City. Arsenal will need to score more goals. They need to score more goals. They've only conceded 3 goals. That's a good thing. I think they have arguably the best defense in the Premier League so far, because when you look at some of the other teams, Man City have conceded 6, Tottenham have conceded 5. Who else has scored? Sunderland have conceded 6. Those are some of the teams that have conceded very few goals. So they do lead the table with 19 points. Manchester City comes second with 16 points. Liverpool have dropped to third with 15 points. Of course, they have played one game less compared to the top 2. Bournemouth, 15 points, following that draw against Crystal Palace, while Tottenham occupy 5th place with Chelsea coming in 6th place, as well as Sunderland in 7th place, all with 14 points. And then Crystal Palace come 8th with 13 points. Brighton in 9th place with 12 points, following their victory today against Newcastle. Everton in 10th place with 11 points. Manchester United dropped to 11th with 10 points. Newcastle dropped to 12th with 9 points, as well as Aston Villa, who play Tottenham tomorrow. Manchester United are away to Liverpool in that sort of sense. Fulham 14 as we speak with only 8 points. 8 games, excuse me. So two wins, 2 draws, and 4 losses for Fulham there. So that's the composition of the top end of the table. Of course, Wolves still occupy the bottom as place on the league table with only 2 points from the opening 8 games. They're the only team that is yet to win a game in the Premier League. West Ham 19th and Nottingham Forest did drop to 18th following Burnley's victory that put them to 7 points, behind Brentford, and Leeds occupying 15th. So that's the look of the Premier League table. Like I said, the action does continue tomorrow on Super Sunday when Tottenham Hotspur take on Aston Villa. That's at 4 p.m. while at at 6:30 p.m. East African time, Liverpool will entertain Manchester United. Okay, away from that, away from Ange Postecoglou, away from Arsenal, we'll discuss Manchester City, we'll discuss Chelsea, and all the other results. Now, Barcelona. Let's rush to the Spanish La Liga, where Sevilla, in a stunning turn of events, lost to Mallorca by 3-1. I did not get to watch these games, I won't lie. But Barcelona beat up against Girona by 2-1. They had to leave it late. Pedri scored in the 13th minute with Lamine Yamal providing the assist, while Axel Witsel, I think is he on loan from Atletico de Madrid, scored to cancel out that lead in the 20th minute. Only seven minutes separated the two goals at the time. And then, like I said, Barcelona left it late in 50th minutes. Sorry, in the 3rd minute of added time, when Ronald Araujo scored, thanks to an assist by Frankie de Jong, to win it at 2-1 for Barcelona, with Hansi Flick shown matching orders. That result means that Barcelona reclaim that top spot which they had occupied by the end of match day 7 with 22 points, 1 point ahead of Real Madrid, who will be in action. That's tomorrow on Super Sunday. Atletico de Madrid have won their game against against Osasuna by 1-0. So please, that result also puts them, I think, somewhere within the top 4 of the La Liga standings. The other game was a 2-2 draw between Real Betis and Villarreal. Of course, it was Alex Baena had a goal cancelled out for offside, but Almada did score what turned out to be the match-winning goal of the game for Atletico de Madrid against Osasuna, and they have moved 4th on the La Liga standings with 16 points, just a point behind the 3rd place Villarreal, following that 2-2 draw with Real Betis. Anyways, we will move away from that as well, and then, okay, maybe the result from the Derby, the Classica. Bayern Munich won that one by 2-1 with Hurricane scoring, as well as Michael Olise, 2 goals that turned out to be the winning goals for that game. Of course, Julian Brandt scored in the 84th minute for what turned out to be a near consolation for the visitors, who are under the charges of Niko Kovac. In the other results from the Bundesliga, Cologne and Augsburg shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw, as did Heidenheim with Werder Bremen in a 2-2 draw. Then Bayer Leverkusen beat up against Mainz 05 by 4-3, while RB Leipzig beat up against Hamburg SV by 2-1. VfB Wolfsburg beat up against VfB Stuttgart by 3 goals. Wolfsburg lost to Stuttgart by 3-0. Those were the other results. In the Italian Serie A, AC Roma lost to Inter Milan in a 1-0 defeat, while Torino beat up against Napoli by 1-0. One of the surprise results from the weekend. Lecce and Sassuolo 0-0, while Pisa and Hellas Verona, that one was 0-0. In terms of the Italian Serie A standings, of course, you do have, because Napoli were at the summit prior to match day 7, and they still have 15 points. Of course, with now Inter Milan occupying the top spot with a similar number of points. AC Roma in 3rd place with a similar number of points. AC Milan then occupy 4th with 13 points, with Juventus coming 5th with 12 points, as some of the top 5 teams. In the standings of the Italian Serie A, Genoa, Pisa, and Fiorentina occupy the bottom 3 with 3 points and 2 respectively. In the German Bundesliga, of course, it's Bayern Munich that still, dominates the standings. The other ones at the summit of the German Bundesliga table, they are yet to lose a game so far this season. So please bear that in mind. They are yet to lose a game this season. Bayern Munich, in as far as Jesus Christ, I'm struggling here. I do not know why, but okay, at long last. I've found what I was looking for. Okay, yes. By minutes, 21 points from 7 games. I mean, 0 wins, sorry, 7 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses. 27 goal squad, only 4 conceded, 23 goal difference, 21 points. Second place is RB Leipzig with 16 points. You can see the point gap is already 5. Then Stuttgart occupy third with 15. Dortmund in fourth place with 14 points, as well as the fifth place by Leverkusen. So the title, of course, will be for Bayern Munich to lose. That's always the case at the start of every season. Anyways, I want us to leave that at that and talk about briefly FUFA caving in on the demands or on the boycott of the Uganda Premier League fans who made their voices really, really loud on online platforms, boycotting, boycotting watching Uganda Premier League games. If gets now again, let me give you a bit of a background here. At the start of the 2025-2026 Uganda Premier League season, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, that's FA of Uganda, introduced new league changes that shouldn't have been introduced by them, in my opinion, in the first place. Should have been introduced by the Uganda Premier League Secretariat, but those ones have no bone or have no back to stand on. So it was the Federation of Uganda Football Associations that introduced. So they introduced those changes. Now, in the new changes that they introduced was a departure from the old league format, which is the league format that is used in majority of leagues around the world, the round robin, home and away, and reverted to what was a 3-round kind of league format, during which in the top flight where we have 16 teams, you'd have 15 games played by each team. In the first round, that means a single-legged kind of fixtures. You get to play some at home, you get to play some away from home. Then, at the end of the first round, teams will be separated into 2 groups, the top 8 and the bottom 8. That's from 9th to 16th. Then those ones play, all 2 groups play a round robin across them to determine the league standings in terms of Group A and Group B. So in Group A, the top 6 would then advance to the third round, where they will play a single round of fixtures to determine who wins the league title. And then the teams that finish 7th and 8th apparently were to play teams that finish first and second in Group B, which essentially would be 9th and 10th, to determine who now finishes 8th. Sorry, to determine who finishes 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Then the bottom 6 from Group B would then play to determine which 2 teams get relegated. Now, the third team that should be relegated would then play a playoff with the third team that should be promoted from the big league, and things like that. Anyways, fans protested. They did not like the league format. They did not understand it entirely. They decided not to go to watch games. On the other side, you had Vipers Sports Club, who are the reigning champions of the Uganda Premier League, in protest, saying we are not going to participate in the Uganda Premier League as is in the new league format without our voices being heard. We think that somebody is rewarding us. We think enough consultations were not made. We think we are being taken for granted, and yet we are the investors into this game, and things like that. Sports Club Villa, what to say, they were going to play, but in protest. NEC did not write a similar letter, but I suspect they were all equally playing in protest because they did not agree or did not love the new league format. Those who sang like a canary in praise of the Federation of Ghana Football Associations and its changes have sort of have to eat their own words, but because the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, through the FA president, that's Engineer Moses Magogo, did say that FUFA Executive Committee suspends new format of the 2025-2026 Start Times Uganda Premier League season. The FUFA Executive Committee has taken a decision to suspend the format of the 2025-2026 Start Times Uganda Premier League season after consultations with the Uganda Premier League clubs, league sponsors, and the Uganda Premier League board. Rule 14, 4 to 12 of the Uganda of the FUFA competitions rules 2025 will now not apply for this season. They also add that the suspension will allow stakeholders more time to understand the new Uganda Premier League reforms through various forms of sensitization. So, apparently, it was also agreed that the president also said it has also been agreed that we will proceed because the league is already going on with the matches that have been played. In other words, we'll consider this the first round of the traditional format. You know, that's what the consideration will be. They'll simply draft a fixture for the second round. I mean, for me, this was crooked. This was crooked. For all the people that I've engaged with at the football front, those that attend games, those that just follow the sport, those that are well-wishers, they just did not understand these changes. They did not like them. And for me, the positive thing about all, one is football. One, two, is that those that are opposed to it, include Vipers being one of them, or being the only one, is that they are not opposed to changes per se. They are simply saying, you've not taken ample time with these consultations. You've not engaged us the way we would expect you to. Let's put this to a side. Let's take it to the FUFA Big League. Let's take it to the Women's League and test it there, you know, and correct the modalities where we think there are, you know, lacunas within the new league format. And once everything is set, we can adopt it at a later, you know, a stage of football, or in 2-3 years' time to come, you know, in that sort of sense. That's all they are saying. They are not entirely opposed to change. They're not entirely opposed to change. So, let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see how things will be, how things will go down. But yeah, football fans have been really, really happy that football is reverting back to the old league format. But by the way, in addition to that statement, the actual full statement, in conclusion of it, no, sorry, not that. It's not. That's not it. But somewhere they do not state categorically for how long. For how long they're suspending this, whether it will return next season or otherwise. They're not saying so, you know. Anyways, so for me, it's just nice to know the football has won. That's all we wanted. Now, dear Uganda Premier League fans, go back, buy your matchday tickets, go enjoy, support your respective domestic clubs. Go and fill the Philip Omondi Stadium. Go and fill St. Mary's Stadium Chitende. Go and fill Nachivubo. Go and fill Wankulukuku. Go and fill the Hinga Stadium. Whichever way, go and fill Kacheka. Is it no? Mbara City are no longer going to be playing in Kacheka. I think they have a new home. Wherever the games are. Kadiba, where you know, Sports Club Villa will be hosting their games. Go and watch football. Go and enjoy the game. and support your respective clubs. Go buy the, the merchandise, club merchandise, and support those clubs into growth. Anyways, guys, thank you so much, Pedri, for being part of this podcast, and everyone, single one of you that managed to tune in. For those of you that tune in long after these broadcasts have ended, we do not take your love and support for granted. I want to wish you a blessed night, and I'll see you guys next time, possibly tomorrow night. Stay blessed. Do not forget, go under the video section on the channel and watch all that new content that we are putting out. There's a new video dropping about, everything to do with the Uganda Premier League changes. It's dropping in the next couple of minutes. Yes, tonight. So stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.